Hi there everybody, it's UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator Halsey here from SlimmandStylish.stampinup.net. Today I have created this card. I was missing playing with yellow and grey. Yellow and grey to me is the ultimate power couple. I love it and I hadn't used it for so long. So I decided to rock out my Artistically Inked stamp set. This has been around for a couple of years now and it's just sitting on my shelf because I'm playing with new stuff and I wanted to play with it again. So I got it out and decided to create a yellow and grey themed card, and this is what I'm creating. So I'm using this big flower, which to me is sort of like a impressionist sunflower type thing. I think impressionist is the word. Is that the art where they sort of, splatter and water paint? I think so, maybe. It doesn't look exactly like what it is, but you can make out that it is that. I might have got the wrong type of art movement. I'm not very good on that sort of thing, but I think that's that. So I'm just adding these onto blocks. I'm going to be using the sunflowery one, like I mentioned. Also, I'm going to be using that art piece at the background. That's a really great backing piece. I'm going to be using the leaf and I'm going to be using the splatter dots as well. So I'm starting out on a piece of basic white that's 10.5 centimetres wide by 14.8 centimetres long. Now, while I've said that, I am using this just to create myself a decorative detail. So I created this while I was waiting for the new annual catalogue to come out and I didn't have any of the new DSP. So I decided to create my own. So I'm using the Stampin' Up markers just to create myself a little grid. And I'm using Daffodil Delight and Smoky Slate to create myself this sort of, it is a grid, but just a decorative panel. And I'm going to cut this down so that it just creates a sort of banner for me. Where I would have used DSP, I'm going to be using this. I've created my own. And I'm using Daffodil Delight ink and I am sponging all over this to make it really yellow. After I'd done it, I wasn't 100% sure, truthfully, whether I was going to use it or not, because I had this great plan that it would look beautiful and it didn't look quite as I expected it to look. So I put it to the side to forget about it and then I ended up using it anyway. So I'm stamping my sunflower with the Daffodil Delight and really pushing that down so it really pops, and look at that. This is what's gorgeous about this stamp set. I get amazed with it every time I use it, is that it is so watercolour effect. Like you put your ink on just like that, you stamp it down, push it down, and look at that. It has some amazing effects on it that makes it look like you've actually done lots of work, but realistically you haven't. Okay, so then I'm using basic grey. So this is like a really dark grey. It's a bit more like a black, but not a black, which is most important because I use black all the time. So sometimes I get a bit fed up of it. Just to pop these dots in the centre of my sunflower. And then I'm on to fussy cutting. And I'm going to be cutting this out. Now, when I start fussy cutting, I always think it's best to use the very innermost of the scissors rather than the top pieces. So keep them open and work your way around using the bottom part of the blade. If you use a top, it tends to look chopped rather than seamlessly cut, is my opinion on that. And if you have like a chopping motion, it never seems to look quite so smooth. So if you're doing something like this that's floaty, definitely use down the bottom of your scissors and go into each little nook and cranny around, just leaving a slight white halo around the image. And I'm also going to be cutting the leaves out as well. So I'm going to cut both of these because I'm going to be popping these sort of popped up and underneath and layering, and it's much better if they're fussy cut out because you've got a bit of flexibility then about where you put them. There's number one. Just finishing off number two now. And there we go, move those off the desk and put those up there. Right, next up, we're going to be doing the decorative piece on the back. So this one is 10.5 centimetres by 14.8, and I'm using grey granite now rather than smoky slate. We have got so many gorgeous grey tones that it's really nice to put them all together. Now this one here is slightly browner, and what I did is I stamped the bottom bit And then I turned it and stamped the top without re-inking so that you've got a really nice effect there. You know, one's quite bright and one is just slightly in the background, which I quite like. And I've worked out where I'm going to put my flower, and this was then where I started looking at my strip. Now what I did decide was to chop it down. So I created it so it was just 1 centimetre. And then I decided to pop it horizontally across the card rather than portrait. And I ran it straight across the middle like you would a ribbon. But what I decided to do last minute was actually tag and tail the ends so that instead of running straight across, it did have a little bit more of a decorative detail, and it had these nice sort of banners at the end. I quite liked it actually. As my homemade DSP ribbon runner, I was quite chuffed. I did look about covering it with the black ribbon, but I thought no, it's too much black. So what I decided to do was put the flower on, put the leaves on, and then put myself a teeny tiny little bow with the black ribbon instead of running it all the way around. Okay, so I'm just using up the edges of my dimensionals here. Nothing ever goes to waste in my craft room, honestly. I'm a hoarder at the best of times, and if it's there and it can be used, it gets saved. So I'm ripping the backs off these and sticking them down, and I'm going to be popping the leaf underneath the flower so that it actually looks like it's a nice layer up there. And that's one of the best reasons for fussy cutting them out, is you've got that flexibility. Add yourself a little ribbon on it. So this one's tiny, and I'm going to fiddle with it a little bit to make it smaller and smaller, and I'm just going to be popping that underneath the flower so it just adds a little bit of decorative detail but not too much. Trim the ends. Always make sure your ends look really nice and neat. And then finally I'm going to be adding hello on as a sentiment. So I'm going to be popping this onto a separate piece of basic white. Put it on a block and ink it out. I'm using basic grey again. Okay, and I didn't want this to be massive. I didn't want it to be the main focal point, so I've cut it really tight as a rectangle around the hello so that it'll just sit on the side, and then at least we've got a sentiment on the card as well. So I looked at popping it underneath the flower and popping it down flat, which worked lovely because everything else had been popped out, so it just sort of sat there a bit unintrusive, and then pop my ribbon on. Okay, I'm going to add this onto my card base. So I keep my card bases to the side of my desk. They're already cut, they're already scored, so all I need to do is fold and burnish it and stick this on. I'm sticking it on flat using my seal on the top there, and that is pretty much my finished yellow card. I'm going to be adding some metallic enamel effects around there. So this is in the black, and I'm just going to pop them on the ribbon as well for a bit more decorative detail. And that is the card finished using the Artistically Inked stamp set. I was so glad that I was able to play with yellow. And here's the finished project. Thank you for joining me. I do hope that you enjoyed the video. Everything I've used today is available from SlimmandStylish.stampingup.net. If you did enjoy the video, please do drop me a like or leave me a comment. And if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe and come back for more content. I also have an Instagram page that I'm trying to grow at the same time. It's @SlimmandStylish, and every like or follow helps. Thanks everybody for joining me. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Bye.